Everybody, then we start. We are 5+5. We have about an hour and a half. I think we will have enough time. So welcome again to the core working group, the interim meeting, the first one after the summer. I hope you have a great vacation. I'm Jaime, and Marco is there with us as well. We will be chairing the session as usual, and you already know where the minutes will be taken. I think they have been copy pasted in the WebEx and in the Jabber. Please help us taking notes as well. That's very welcome as usual. So the note, well, you know that it applies to all of the communications on these sessions on the WebEx, just like with the normal IETF sessions. So it guides our practices, and it's also about not only about the IPR or other legal items, but also about the general behavior. So try to be nice to each other. I think that's it. There is no more slides here. The topics we have, the main topic for this interim, as you know, is the resource directory. I don't know if everybody has had a look at the discussions. I have tried, but there is actually plenty of material, which Christian has very nicely and generously compiled in the repository. If you go to the core GitHub repository, where you go to the resource directory, and you have the point-to-point responses marked down, which is very detailed and contains all that has been discussed. There is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like a dozen issues in the tracker as well. But at least I would recommend to go first to the markdown. Christian, do you have slides for the presentation, or how do you want to do this session?
Okay, so the way I would like to go about this is to go through a mixture of issues that have been aggregated from the comments and the comments themselves. Now I would like to say I have been, but actually there is about 4 left, so I hope I won't miss anything important there. I have been sorting them in basically by the level of feedback that I would hope to get from, or the importance of feedback that I would like to get from the working group. Mm-hmm. So that's those black labels you'll see if you're already in the issue tracker. I'll start sharing my screen momentarily.
Yeah, I see them, the WGF3.
Yeah, working group feedback. So what I'd like to do is basically count down from them and see whether we get through everything. And by the time we reach WGF 3 or 2, I might even just kind of flick them through the screen, and if anyone sees something that kind of hits their attention, but those should be really no-brainers.
Okay. So sorry, will you be sharing, or
I will? Yes, I'll try to share screen here.
Sorry, I think maybe I need to stop sharing first. Go ahead.
Hang on a second, please. Which? Okay.
I will also copy paste the URL of the repo to the WebEx, by the way, in case people some.
Oh yeah, please do. And for you to see what I'm seeing, if you're on the repository, I'm just pushing this here. So I've been kind of literally classifying triaging things as you were introducing them as well. But I hope I know well what should be there. So without further ado, let's get started with the points where I'd like to have feedback on.
Hold it just a second. At least I don't see anything yet.
Okay.
I don't either.
Oh, sorry. So the camera. Do you see my video stream?
It says that this is starting to share the content, but it also says, at least to me, that there is some connection issues on your side. Not anymore, actually. It just disappeared.
So there, So now there is no video, and now there is, or?
I think there has never been video, at least for me.
Okay.
No video. It's showing circle.
Okay, so the That's bad.
There might be some. I get a warning here that there's low bandwidth on your computer, and that video is not currently available.
I should have like at least 6 megabit up.
Yeah, but try stopping your video and see whether your slides come through then.
Yeah.
Okay, because in other setups I've seen that the that slides really only work if you're sharing video. Don't know why one would do things that way, but okay, video is down. How about now?
Let's wait a
At
bit.
least it says it's sharing my screen.
WebEx is telling me that I'm viewing your screen, but your screen is white.
I can assure you it isn't.
In the meanwhile, I can show mine, or someone else can, if you want.
Basically, if you could show the issue tracker and and click into the WGF9 level, because that's where I'd like to start. I'll try reconnecting here once. If that doesn't work, we'll fall back to me asking someone else to share.
Sounds good.
I'll be right back. So now I didn't have video active at any point before, so maybe it works now. Still doesn't look like it. Okay, so Jaime, can you or one of the chairs be my person?
No problem.
Okay. So let's start with the one that is marked WGF9. That's the fallback or default security model. Click in there, please. And once more. So one of the feedback points, and we've already talked about this, I think, at the IETF proper or the last interim, not sure, is that we should have at least something that we can recommend people to implement in the resource directory as a security policy, because we are introducing that there could be any, but that seems to be a bit too abstract for people to work from. So the two contenders here are the first come first serve model and the endpoint names. So the endpoint names would be basically what Lightweight M2M is doing. If you could scroll down to the end, last comment. So unfortunately I haven't managed, and maybe zoom in a bit or make the screen wider, I don't know. So the what I would like to put in there, and it would, if anyone has suggestions of how to do it differently, it would be helpful to have them now, other than when I've finished the text, would be basically this. So the RD remembers who registered with a particular endpoint name, and for depending on what the credentials are on the client side, this would be remembered by by an identifier derived from those credentials, and we'd have to spell out for each and every way of authentication how this would be done. So if DTLS is used without any client authentication, then the registration could only be accessed from that very DTLS connection or possibly a resumed session. If there's a self-signed certificate, that's good. That's kept as the identifier for that name. Again, until that registration expires. If the registration expires, everything's fair game again. The resource directory might remember for some time, but it doesn't need to. And if a client comes back and sees that their preferred name is taken, this is about random names anyway, so they can just come up with a new one if it turns out to fail. If there's a certificate chain, there could be even a bit more persistence for clients that come up again after having renewed their certificate, but it's not really essential. For Lake, with RPKs or certificates, it could work basically the same way. For the ACE OSCO profile, I'd need a bit of help from people familiar with ACE, whether there's any any scope or any claim in an ACE token that can be thought to really identify the client, because as I understand, ACE doesn't really so much identify the client as in assigns a precise identity that's exactly that client, but more expresses authentications, and one authentication could be to be recognized as having this particular identity. If there's something like that, we could use it. Otherwise, there won't be any ACE OSCAR profile for this application.
There are two ways you can do it. One way is there actually is a subject claim that could be used for that purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The second way is if it is using PSK, you could use the PSK as well. The third way is it's possible to actually assign a CWT identifier. I don't know whether that would be a good way or not.
Okay. The subject claim sounds about the most suitable, so maybe it's enough if we put that in there. On the PSK and signed CWT, I'd have to read up to understand what that actually means.
So Christian, a question. I haven't read this. I'm just jumping in now. How is this extensible, or can it change? There's some
this is really not a full application. This is more like the very minimal set that people can get started with, and then can build their applications on, or could release a proper specification for something that encompasses this and other things. And I suppose that it could even allow for RDs to recognize things that are not explicitly in there, but like if they have a clue of how to identify the client in a more persistent way, and they are sure that this works, just do it. But it's what we are being asked for is some kind of minimal thing that people can use to understand this and possibly put into implementations as a default behavior.
Okay, thanks.
I don't think that we have any other item on the issue tracker with feedback level 9, so I'd go to the Reimer, please switch to the point-to-point response document.
So I'm not yet entirely sure I understand this list. So essentially, you are defining some default comparisons that establish that the identity hasn't changed.
Yes.
And some of them are weird, like certificate fingerprints. So if I actually renew my certificate, I'm no longer
Yep. This is about self-signed certificates. So if you're renewing yourself, this is kind of a first idea, and I'm perfectly fine if it turns out that some of those ideas are bad and should not be done that way.
Yeah.
So self-signed certificate would maybe preferably say signed with, I mean, what can change there?
I mean, in some sense, the public key seems to be the right level.
Yes, exactly.
And when you talk about the session resumption, then it would be some pre-master secret, something like that. That will be the same independently of how many resumptions you have.
So if we have a host name or a subject identifier, that is the natural candidate.
Yes.
And everything else I would prefer to tie to the key, because in that case, if I'm doing something new, I will know what I should be using. So don't have some bizarre rules that are all different. But I always go for something like a host name or a subject identifier, and if that doesn't exist, I go for the key.
Sounds good to me.
That would also help in the future, so you don't have to add an ACE ad hoc profile to handle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The thing is with okay, but tied to the key would mean the most general key that is involved there, because if you're doing Lake, then there is the OSCORE key, but that's not the key you're tying to, but the OSCORE key was derived from through a chain from another key, and you go for the most general key there.
So, are you thinking public key or sort of the key used in the key derivation?
In that case, you wind up with a public key.
Right. So yes. So that would be the right thing.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you.
But from the general, but I mean, setting aside the rules, would that make sense?
I think so.
Okay. I've taken a note here and we'll make this into some text. Okay, I think we are back to the point-to-point responses then. And if you could just search for WGF-9, then we can jump through. You might need to refresh here. Apologies. No?
9 is this default security model.
No, our thing is, I just pushed changes in there, and there should be. Sorry.
Maybe a different branch.
No, I just failed something in the commit.
Then, in the meanwhile, can I ask others a stupid question? So just to make sure, like what we are doing is that when the RD remembers some information about the device, it will not be tied in any way to the IP address, just in case the IP mapping changes, right?
No, not to the IP address.
And when we say remember things, is that, for instance, if in the case of Lightweight M2M, there is a lot of observations preset, so those can be migrated to the new device, or I don't know the term, if it is migrated or something else, but like those would be the kind of thing that is remembered, right?
No, those observations would be. I mean,
that's application level thing.
That's completely different things.
Okay.
That's the observation. You might think about migrating observations when the endpoint changes its address and renews its registration, but really that's a different topic there.
Okay. Fine.
So the new branch should be up there now. So refresh should give you the. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So WGF 9, please. Next one.
Another one, or?
Yeah, that's sorry. I just need a moment to align myself here.
No problem.
Okay, yeah, this is something. So I've brought this up earlier with a mail in a different form. This touches on the topic of clients relying on links and whether they can really use the information as it's coming from the resource directory or need to verify it. So suppose someone's using describing an application where they basically use the clients, so where they look up something and then just plain post there. are we generally fine with using links from a resource directory there? Because that post could, I mean, the intention of that post could really be anything, and the intention and the interpretation on the server depends on what they advertise as link properties. So naively, I'd say that even such applications, and this could be used as an example to put in there, would need to check back if they kind of submit a form in a curl document that's winds up in a resource directory or something like that. If they follow such a form, or post something based on a resource type, they should probably check back with the origin server, because that resource directory could be misrepresenting them, unless of course we're trusting the resource directory. So this is where are we with respect to doing actions with one's credentials based on information that was discovered that is really more of a hint level, at a hint level.
I don't understand.
And I just see that you're seeing something different than I see, so I've been rambling on about a point that is not this one. I'm sorry, Div. I've been through this document the last 2 days, and I seem to mix up things. Please give me a second. I'll be right back with focus.
I only see the 2 WGF-9
Yeah.
items.
So that's the one that I was talking about.
Okay.
So the question that's being posed here is, when an application is developed, how much should the developers lean towards not trusting not requiring a trusted resource directory, and thus asking the application to verify everything they got from the RD, from the origin server, as far as it affects the semantics of the request that will later be sent, versus just relying on a trusted RD and specifying that the RD must only contain content that can later be acted on, even if that means that the RD will effectively gain the privileges of the well-known core resources of every device around. Sounds a bit like I'm still not making perfect sense here.
I think we are just going through we are still probably all of us reading this part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this part that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
The highlighted part.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just not sure what hints. What do we mean by hints?
So there's
and when you say discovered information, you mean like what, like a link relation, or
primarily target attributes? So the target attributes that are kind of the archetypical hint level information are things like content format, or like the accepted content format. So when you discover a resource, you don't have to go and try posting data in any serialization you could come up with, but you discover that this is accepting SendML only in CBOR serialization, so I'll make my request SendML plus CBOR. These target attributes are work properly as hints, so nothing goes wrong if someone has the wrong hint. The worst case is that they kind of stumble through different options, or worst case it's a soft denial of service, but nothing is going really badly wrong. Resource types are a bit of a different beast when they are used to ascribe meaning to operations that could be done on them. So on the mailing list, I think we have this example of starting a port scan on another device, and you could trigger this by basically posting some document to that port scanner's scan resource. And if a device is misinformed and thinks that at that very resource there's something more benign or more harmless, then it could be triggered to that it could trigger a port scanner because it thinks it's talking to a resource directory. So in those cases, that target attributes are less hint level and more important information for using this resource. The point of this item in section 7.2 is that applications need to think about what can go wrong if the client discovers unsuitable information, and then either prescribe that the information in the resource directory must be limited to the suitably authorized endpoints that put it in there, or alternatively, they can say that the endpoint must verify the information, for example, by, after having discovered that this resource is there, asking that server again whether it's really a resource directory and not maybe say a port scanner.
I don't know if nobody's commenting anything, but my first feeling about it is that maybe we are specifying too much on the RD. Is this something that is really about the RD interfaces?
This is
not
not
more
so
about
much
the application, how the application should behave. Sorry, yeah.
It's about what things an application needs to consider when picking a way of using the resource directory. And yes, possibly we're going too far in specking things out here.
It's just
but then,
like yeah, sorry.
Maybe the response is just this would take us too far.
Well, I mean, it's my first. I need to think more about it. I would like other people's comments, but that was my first thought about it. I don't know if others have, because I mean, the assumption is that the application knows how to work with links, right? And yeah, so it should know that how to understand the link attribute and what it actually means, or how to, or I mean, anything really on the link. I don't know. I mean, maybe so. This will go on the security section, right? 7.
Yeah, this is the policies.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Any other opinions, please?
So there are several things that come to mind here. And one is there is another aspect of trustworthiness that we might talk about for resource directories, which is that the resource directory does not suppress registrations.
Yes.
So whether you trust that or not is maybe an important consideration. And for the veracity of the registrations, another important question is trust implies liability. So how can the resource directory be sure that what it got, what it is presenting, is actually the truth?
That I think we can solve, because for that particular point, the rules would come into play where the RD is only accepting registrations for about or accepting statements about links that the registrant is actually authorized to act as the authority server of. So the credentials that are presented to the RD must be as good as they would need to be to just get do a get on there via CoAP-S, especially in a PKI setting.
That's a good restriction, because with the when you register from other endpoints, you don't know who is the owner of that URI or that domain. That has been a problem also in other scenarios.
That's one of the policies that we describe as that might be applicable.
So is this for the default security model, or is it for all security models?
This is general guidance on when to apply this particular security model. So security model 7.2 is about entered resources, and this is precisely about describing to implementers when this security policy would be relevant. So if you rely on information to be authoritative, if you want to rely on information from the RD to be authoritative about the resources that are the context of those links or the targets possibly, then you need to specify that in your security policies, and the RD must only accept registrations that contain data that is from that certified origin.
Actually, now I have more questions. So in that registration, you append also the so it's only for public key, I suppose, right? And you append the public key of the registrar of the other domain, or how? Oh, yeah, sorry.
So this would practically require some form of certificate based authentication, where the registrant provides credentials that it would usually use in a server capacity. So traditionally, this could be just the server certificate. Basically, if my server goes to your resource directory and shows the thing it shows to anyone asking for HTTPS myserver.com, and my server shows this when registering, then the resource directory can be sure that this is actually acts on behalf of myserver.com.
It's not the certificate, but something signed with the certificate, right?
The certificate becomes part of the link setup.
And I guess it could also be even more restrictive, and you can only register things that you are actually, that the CoAP endpoint can only register things that is hosting itself.
Yeah, so this is one of the models that can be applied there. And this is basically what the section 7.2 is about. And the real question at hand is just how much do we have to spell all this out to people that consider implementing it.
Okay, maybe we can go in order so that we don't get digressing too much. Like, so is that the way? I mean, I guess that's the way you want to handle it too, right? Or you prefer open discussion and just because you have a lot of points and maybe sorry.
Yeah. Yes, I have a lot of other points, and this would probably make a good candidate for postponing to further discussion on the mailing list.
Yeah, I think so.
So if you could skip to the other WGF9 point. That's a hopefully easier one. I'm not sure whose comment that was right now. This is, yeah, Ben's comment. He's not really happy with the, basically with us assigning additional behavior to an existing well-known resource. I understand the point, and we have been a bit sloppy about this in earlier versions, even with respect to IANA updates. So my first question here is, are we aware of any implementations that are out in the wild that do simple registration and do that on well-known core as opposed to, say, a newly minted well-known RD?
I only know that in Lightweight End-to-End we don't use that.
Basically, the two options here are, yes, go with it, or give him at least any reason why we are doing this here and not in a newly minted one. And right now I can't come up with one, so I'm leaning towards saying that, yeah, let's just pick another well-known resource and not overload well-known core.
Maybe I don't understand the question. So well-known core is the self-description of the device.
This is about where the simple registration happens, by posting to well-known core.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's indeed weird. I agree.
Okay, if you say it's weird, I was expecting that if anyone that you would defend the choice of well-known core here. As you don't, if no one else speaks up, I'll just make the changes and let's take well-known RD.
Yeah, I would probably add a note that previous versions of this document used well-known core for this, and implementations may want to do what they need to do.
Would probably is, I think, the normative language that we should use in that case. Yep, fine with me. Thank you. So on level 8, so let's stick with that document, just go for 8. That's a weird thing that came up in the comment, and it's possibly only weird because I was not familiar with the details of CoAP DTLS, so we don't have video, but can I have an imaginary show of hands? Who thinks that who would expect their DTLS implementation in CoAP S to do replay protection? So I was
replay protection of what?
Of previously seen messages.
Oh, definitely.
So I looked it up, and in DTLS it's optional. And CoAP and RFC 7252 doesn't say anything about that it's mandatory to use in this context. So I was a bit taken aback when I read that comment and found out that he's perfectly right, and that if we are describing this application as securely usable over CoAP S, we should say something about why it's okay, which is basically that every operation except those particular ones, in which case you should, are long-term idempotent anyway, so replays won't have any ill effect. And yes, the ending a registration is something that could be replayed. So the alternatives to that would be to say that CoAP servers that run a resource directory must have replay protection in CoAP as enabled. And the third option would be to come up with a very quick update to CoAP to say that, hey, if you're using CoAP over DTLS, then turn on your replay protection or else. Preferences?
Well, yeah, I mean, replay protection has to be mandatory. I thought it was already.
I mean, I could have been wrong, and this is all a no issue because I missed some update to the DTLS specification, but that's at least what it says in general.
Is there anything in 7925?
Okay.
I don't find the word replay in 7925.
Yeah.
There's two times it appears, and it's not for reply protection, as far as I know. You say 7925?
Yes.
There's no mandatory replay protection in 7925.
Yeah. Ah, yeah, and Thomas, you're the author, so you know.
I should know, yeah. Although.
Oh.
Well, then maybe we just, as Kristen, as you suggested, like we just make sure that there is some text there commenting that and forcing DTLS to use replay protection.
So we'll just say it there in RD and then hope that it gets picked up in the co-op.
And what I understood from you is that the replay protection is optional, right? Not that it's not present.
It's optional, yes, but that means that no one can rely on it unless they, yeah.
Yeah, maybe some comment there, but maybe this is also feedback to be sent, well, elsewhere as well. Thomas is already here. Maybe you, Thomas, can check that. I don't know if there is any room for any update of all the drafts.
Yeah, sure.
So next,
Okay,
or other comments? So Christian?
Yeah, just next level 8, please. Yeah, there's so maybe that's a good point to talk about odd examples. We've received a few comments about things that are in the examples that honestly I only skimmed over in the list in the more recent revisions because it's been the same all the time, and some of those are this very long example of what lightweight M2M is doing, and there's something similar in the other example, and those contain terms that no one is explaining that are probably not even relevant. So while I could try and find a reference for the MS-ISDN term that's relevant there.
Those reference actually all of the parts related to SMS, they are not that relevant anymore. Maybe I can share the version 1.2 of the OMA spec, and we can, or I can check it and send something to you, or how it looks like now.
We can run this by the OMA spec, but I think the more relevant question is what of this is really relevant to resource directory, because I'm pretty sure that even if IMSDN was still part of the current lightweight M2M specification, it's not something that makes a lot of sense to talk about in the resource directory.
I agree.
So
I think you could update the table and remove, for instance, that part, the SMS number, SMS, and the MS-ISDN.
Probably the whole table. So the question more. Yeah. I mean, there's a few things that are spread over there. So why are we having these things there in the first place? Because that's relevant to the question of how much I can rip out.
Well, I mean, so as again, to my knowledge, because I don't know the whole co-op ecosystem out there, but to my knowledge, lightweight M2M folks are using resource directory, or at least some flavor of it, even if it is just a registration interface, and that's what is on the text at the moment, from what I can see, just the registration interface for OMA version 1.0.
Okay, then let me rephrase that question. Why don't we just say that OMA lightweight M2M is using these and those parts of the resource directory in Appendix 10.2, and possibly illustrate a request and response? We currently don't, and be done with it, because we're talking here about this object model that has
all of these, it's true. Actually, you have the stuff there's stuff on the object IDs and base URI resource. I think that could create confusion to the people that are only interested on the resource directory. If they want to know about the live with IETF registration, they can go to the live with IETF spec. I tend to agree with that. But I don't know who wrote that anymore. Do you?
I have a hunch that if I run git blame on the current version, it will show that
I think it's Michael, maybe.
It has always been there before this thing even has been put into Git.
Yeah, then maybe Zach himself. I don't know. But yeah, I agree on the point raised there. What does the group think?
Well, there is very little point in enumerating those additional registration parameters without explaining what they mean. So I would just change the colon after additional optional registration parameters are defined into a period and delete the table.
And what about, I mean, we didn't receive a precise complaint about the object model thing, but does it, I mean, then again, we don't have anything to act on here, so yeah.
Yeah, this is all. So when you have a standard somewhere and then you have another normative document rephrasing the same thing, then you are always in a dangerous territory.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand this to be an illustrative addition, and it might even make sense in something like core interfaces, although this is really not the style I would recommend, but one might be tempted to recommend something like this.
I'm just wondering, like, the more I read about it, the more I can imagine someone getting confused. Like, for instance, with the binding mode, you have there, I don't know, UQ. What does the Q mean? Do they have to know about Q mode in live IETF? I don't think so. We have in the call, I think, Thomas, you also joined the OMA every now and then, maybe, or?
Not really.
Not really.
No.
Okay. Because I'm hesitant to just remove the whole thing. That's a bit maybe a bit too much. Maybe we could just specify something at the beginning, saying that this is just an example of how live IETF does it. That this is not something illustrative of how resource directory should work. What do you think? What does everybody think? Because the rest of the text from the, I mean, yeah, from the beginning of the example onwards is correct as it is. But like Christian is saying, maybe what is the point of showing there the object model of live IETF? Is this
Is that
relevant?
even right anymore? I think that OMA has a slightly extended object model now.
Well, I mean, the path as it is presented is correct. Base URI,
Okay.
object ID, instance, resource, and resources. But anyway, I mean, things may change in the future, of course.
Where is the actual example? This is
I
supposed
think the best part, the relevant part, is 10.2. Lightweight M2M defines the registration interface. The registration URI is specified as /rd. That's the.
Oh, I'm sharing the screen. Well, that's even better. So here you go. This is where you have the latest version of the OMA spec and the registration interface. And this is the example. I think SMS was removed, maybe, I don't know.
Oh, sorry, that's a cat and a microphone. Sorry.
Can we add just some? I don't know if you can add reference to other specifications as informative or just I don't know, FYI. This is where you can find it. Not this link, by the way, but the official one later on. And this is the example. I don't know.
I think we should do that. Kind of slim it down to. I mean, this would be removing kind of 1, 2, 3, but about 2.5 screen pages of text. But I don't see more than 5 lines of that is relevant, plus possibly the reference.
Yeah, so I would delete the entire section 10.2, and in the introduction to 10, just say that an example can be found in the lightweight M2M document XYZ.
I'd be very happy with this.
I think that that's much safer and much more stable.
Yeah.
There is one more thing in this section. Okay, now let's go through this just by the numbers. Next, number 8, please. I put this at this high level because I'm just not too familiar with all the 6-man and neighbor discovery thing. Would it be okay to just update the text to say that the RDAO is always in router announcements? Because every commenter that came back to this seemed to think that it should be the way, but it's just said. It's just not said anywhere.
Please repeat. I got lost.
Got lost where?
So this FF35 thing is an example, right?
Oh no,
RDA.
This I'm talking about what's on the screen, on the share screen, highlighted there.
Oh. Okay, I read this the other way around. Yeah, so RDAOs should occur in exactly the same messages where we would put DNS servers. So let's check where we can put in DNS servers.
Okay, I can act on this, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, next point, please. Less comments on this. Yep, the top one on sleepy nodes. Just pick any that hasn't been addressed before.
No, sorry, just let me know which one.
Pick any that hasn't been addressed before. Just
okay. I'll just go to the next in the row. Yeah. There you go.
Okay. So I don't know a lot about stateless configuration and DHCP. If someone with more familiarity could come up with text to address this, this would help me a lot.
I think the whole point is that in the bullet list on page 16, you say that we say that the address configuration, if the address configuration is done using DHCP, we can also provide additional information via a DHCP option. And the comment is pointing out that we can supply DHCP options even if we do the address configuration using Slack.
But we don't have to because we have the better RDAO that's used with Slack, right?
Yes, we don't have to, but if there is some DHCP going on for some reason, even if that is not providing the address configuration, we can still to supply the DHCP option, and that's a V6 thing. V4 cannot do that, as far as I know.
So it would be an additional source. So basically, the text is right, but it should not be limited to if the address configuration is performed, but when DHCP is used.
Yes. Or is in use, I probably would say. Yes.
Right. Then that should be an easy fix. Thank you. So the next one we already had. So wrap around, please. Yeah, sleepy nodes. Sleepy nodes have been around for basically before I really actively joined the group. So I don't know what's the plan here. We are referencing sleepy nodes in the introduction. But we don't have any still up-to-date document to reference. So should we just add a bit of an explanation and or like respond without additional information there? That's what I'd go for. So just say, yeah, sleepy nodes are a complex thing and we don't put anything more there because there isn't currently a document that gives more details. Or has the topic of sleepy nodes slept in so deeply that we would remove the references.
So basically, the problem in here comes from the reference saying the remote server usually used to provide proxy access to the endpoint. So we can just remove that and get done with that. Sorry, Carsten, you were going to say?
Well, the reason that we don't have a sleepy node document is that essentially all approaches that you can use there have some patent thickens around them.
Have some what?
Patent thickens.
Oh no.
So you get stung pretty badly. And the approach that probably is safest in that regard is to use a proxy and have the sleepy node alert the proxy in some form when it wakes up, and then the proxy can forward requests that it stored while waiting for the sleepy node to come up. There are tons of other approaches, and I even have a T2TRG document that describes another approach. But this is probably the most basic approach. And now I'm trying to find out which text this refers to. Cellular M2M.
But this text is basically the introduction to the use cases. So we need to say, I think the question from the commenter is more like a question like, how does this work, rather than that he doesn't like the text. Like, I think.
So if we could add there some reference, basically if any of the sleepy nodes document were still active, I would just add a reference, for example, as described in. Now they've run out of steam around 2014, the latest. At least the ones with sleepy in the title, I could easily find.
So the problem is that the actual documents that people have written all were trying to get some existing patent claim in as an essential component.
Okay.
And, so that's why they all died. That doesn't mean that the approach is wrong.
Yeah.
We just never got anyone to document one of the less dangerous approaches.
So basically, we would be waiting for someone to write a minimal sleepy note, like something basically something like my resource directory extensions proxying, when making the proxy a bit eager, something like that.
Yeah. Let me take that as an action that I supply a pull request for that particular paragraph. I think we can fix that.
Can we just, maybe phrase that in some different way in which basically the proxy is, or the middle entity is just providing, I don't know, cache resource representations or something like that?
I mean, that is a proxy.
Well, yeah, but yeah. So
I think even the text is
I think because I
largely
think
right.
that's what he's asking. Like, because I think he's the comment is about how can you provide access to an endpoint that is not connected, and maybe what we need to clarify is that we are not providing access to the endpoint, but to the latest resource representation stored somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, the proxy does not need to. So my kind of draft response says it doesn't need to. It just needs to have representations, and if it doesn't have, then it may do whatever, but especially fail the proxying operation. But yeah, if we have a plan forward, and I think we have, I think we can jump to the next one.
Yeah.
On the home building automation, it's a bit vague. Does anyone have a better idea than just pointing out more precisely where an RD could be deployed in those cases?
So again, from my own limited knowledge, I know that one of the IKEA Trotfi was using lightweight Interim, and therefore it was using some resource directory, and that could be one example. I don't know if SIGBIT uses co-op. I think he used to, but I don't know if he uses RD or co-op anymore. Maybe other people more familiar with OCF, with other SDOs or other real life scenarios can provide more info. If not, maybe some vision on how it could be. This is for the case of home. I don't know where. Actually, this is very broad because it's home and building automation, so it's pretty big.
Yes,
yeah. Maybe someone from Philips on the Philips Lightning or something like that. I don't know.
Yep. But, so I'll take this as if we find some examples to sprinkle in there, we can use that. Otherwise, I'll just point out that where an RD can be used. It's probably just a few words here and there to add that. Okay, thank you. There is one more WGF 8 at the bottom. And we've received several comments on the topic of how does the resource directory know which expectations the clients have with respect to the security policies. My take here is that the resource directory doesn't need to know, because the resource directory just provides, and it's up to the clients to ask to only accept an RD if it's somehow indicating that it provides those things, and that would typically be because it's explicitly configured. But as this is possibly a bit more controversial topic, if someone doesn't agree with that statement here, please let me know.
Yeah, that's a classical authorization problem. So I cannot really trust anything until it's authorized for being trusted. And the source of that authorization, of course, is not defined here. So the fact that we can authenticate an RD in some way doesn't tell us what it is useful for. And the thing itself saying what it is useful for is not really useful. We need some third party, some trusted third party announcement what it is useful for. But we also don't provide a defined way to do that. That would be ACE or an ACE token or something like that.
I think I can factor that into the response here. There's one more point at this level, but I don't understand the question yet well enough to ask meaningful stuff. So I'll briefly check whether we have anything on the issue tracker at level 8, and otherwise, please jump to level 7. Yeah, so 8 is clear on the issue tracker. That brings us to the level 7 items. That's the first. So yeah, we use examples that don't use registered that use resource types and other registration, other things with obligatory registration that are not actually registered. I can defend some of them, especially the ones where we are picking stuff from 6690 that used values it didn't define as for examples, but we are taking over those examples. And we are using some that I won't try to defend and just replace with examples. The ones in the middle are the interesting ones, that is core.a and core.p. They have been used in examples all around in different drafts, because core interfaces used to be a prominent thing that was kind of expected to go through at some point. I don't think that this future is clear enough that it justifies having those code points here, but then again, it limits the recognizability of the examples. So any better suggestions than replacing those with example.core.a or something like that, or example.actuator?
Well, another comment on if the examples have to be real, do we have the U equals Kelvin, for example, the unit as a...
So that's completely fine, because those are target attributes, and those target attributes are not generally registered.
Okay. It's only for the registered ones.
There I can advertise any possible any things that I would like to see as I see fit.
Okay.
At least from a registration point of view.
Well, I mean, if you can put more realistic examples, I don't see why not. It's just more...
I can't put more realistic examples. I just can put examples that don't look like code points cutting.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? To me, this sounds like the reasonable... Oh, sorry.
At this point, I would like to have any unit names be SendML compatible. But that's not the problem we're looking at right now.
Yes, but I'll take that up as bycatch from the comments.
Thank you.
Was K not for Kelvin in SendML?
Yes.
Ah, well, then they are. At least the ones I've seen in the draft.
I think that's the only one anyway. Okay, next 7, please. Yeah, it's not so much a question, but more of a point. There appears to be a more broad document on URIs that can be used to that are kind of bearer tokens, I'd say.
Yes.
And I'm just stressing that those URIs that we're having here are not, and it's supposed to be that way.
Yep.
Okay. Next item, please.
Christian, have you checked that document? Is something relevant that we should check as well? Just
No, so I only checked it to understand what they mean, and they mean URIs as bearer tokens. And my claim is that we intentionally do not do this.
This is the next one, or do we do this?
Hang on a second. This is the next one that we haven't processed yet.
Yeah.
I think I have a good response in saying that do we support networks that don't support multicast well means that they don't support it efficiently or conveniently, or there might not at all, or there might be any other reason why they don't support it well. But I'm not a big expert there, so if there's anything better to say, it would be helpful. I might also add that the sequence, the ranking I did here, I won't try to defend the sequence of priorities here. It's just something that hopefully allows us to go through the important parts while skipping the obviously unimportant ones. Okay, next, please. Yeah, so the question comes back about comes again back to those URIs. We are exposing them, even though they are not helpful. I think of so this is especially in the endpoint lookup. I think of them as useful as identifiers, but do have to admit that it could be done completely different as well. Do we have anything in defense of offering those URIs as kind of the anchor points for information about the registration that I should add?
Reading the question, so the endpoint lookup does expose it. What does it mean that the RD does not need to make them accessible? When the RD answers the lookup, it provides a series of links.
Yes, but that's basically because we can't represent because that's the best structured data format we had available at the time we started working with resource directory. So originally they were even kind of self links that didn't expose the resources. The point is that we are describing those resources here, but we are not expecting the client to be able to use the resource in any way. We are just using it as a name here, and that's something that that I think is understandable with the mindset of that's more coming from the RDF area, where you don't necessarily need to dereference a URI to use it, because you could use it as an identifier. But I understand how it is confusing. Then again, nothing we could do easily would probably change this. So I think it's just up to us to describe why this makes sense in this particular application. So that maybe to explain this also with the last paragraph here, if we did a resource directory, for example, in Coral, the RD might choose not to tell the names of the registration resources, but just say that there is a resource and that has these and those properties, and choose not to tell the name. In link format, we don't have that option.
So do we have an information disclosure problem here?
Possibly, if the names if the RD comes up with the names in a way that is neither random nor deterministic from the endpoint from the visible attributes, then we might have an information disclosure problem. So maybe we should give a bit of guidance to the RD what they better not put into the URIs, however they shape it, so that they don't create this information disclosure
Yeah,
problem.
that sounds good to me.
Yep. Well, if no pushback comes from the response that I'll send, to bury in this, then I think we'll be good with this. So,
by the way, there is this use case link catalogs. I wonder if we shouldn't also put a comment there. Is the part where the resources may be shared through data brokers and blah blah blah?
I think there is one point on that in the comments to come. That is, but the link catalog is more about registered links, isn't it? That's the link catalog is about sharing resources and not sharing the endpoint registrations.
I don't know. It says there is also web link references also there.
Yeah, but I think this
Not
all
sure.
pertains to
Okay.
resources that are registered at the RD and not the resources that the RD creates by itself on itself.
Oh yeah, after on the lookup. Yeah, true. It's not exactly the same thing. Yes. Okay.
I think we might manage to go through the level 7 in the time allocated. So those are hopefully the most important ones. So next item, please. Yeah. This is one of the other parts where there are examples in there that are a bit odd. And in this case, in the luminary part, yes, you can. So what we're describing there is that the luminaries that are part of the system look up groups by their basically and decide by their resources whether they should join that group. Now that's something that's not completely fundamentally broken, provided that they check additional properties of those links, but it's not really something that I would recommend and put in the examples that even though we don't explicitly say this is how it should be done. I mean, if it's in the example section of a document, then this kind of speaks a bit. And this was asked about explicitly. Now, whether this is really what is going on here, and I'll take this as an opportunity to ask whether we might not want to remove this part there as well. Especially given that there is a document that describes things around that area coming up that describes how to do it more properly, let's say, being the group discovery.
This is also on the examples, right?
Yes, this is the example 10.1.
I'm thinking also about that. Maybe the text that is intended now in the resource directory document is not really about finding out your membership, but the membership you are supposed to have, actually, considering the resources you are trying to export.
Yes, but that's a very odd design.
Right, so it's not implying any previous registration of membership. That's certainly not true.
Yeah, but it's implying that so it's designed around a group being registered, and by virtue of you having some links that are in the group, you think that it's good for you to be in that group as well.
Yeah. So an expected membership.
Provided link name equality means anything.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask, so the sector information is added automatically based on the resource characteristics? Is that what you said, or did I catch it wrong?
No, sector doesn't come into play here at all.
Ah, sorry.
This is just a resource. A resource sees a resource directory, looks at the groups that are registered there, and sees that one group is so similar to itself that it might just as well make itself a part of it.
With no access whatsoever, no restrictions.
I mean,
it's a bit of another example, yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's referring to the odd examples text. So my preference here would be to remove that part of the example. The rest is largely good, but this particular piece could be a bit disturbing.
Yeah, to be frank, the /co-op group, I I just have never used it actually. I don't know how people are using it or what they think about it. That's the one you're talking about, right?
That's
neither. Okay.
Yeah, yes, that as well. So above there is that part where the endpoint joins it automatically by having discovered the group, and then alternatively the CT can communicate, and that's, by the way, and I didn't notice and no other reviewer did, but you just did. That part, by the way, is being ripped out. It's being removed from that experimental RFC and not part of the group comps anymore because nobody implemented it.
Yeah.
So probably those two last parts about it automatically joining the group and about using
direct multicast access address configuration
should, in my opinion, just be removed because they are confusing examples at best.
Yeah. What does the group thing? I tend to agree as well. To be frank, the examples I only look at the Lawton terms. I'm not so familiar with the laminary ones.
Could we? I think there's two more level 7, 3 more level 7 points. I think they are quick and we have a chance to at least brush over them in time.
I'm showing it already.
Sorry.
Since Christian, you added some more points in any other business, just to be sure you cover them if you want to today.
Yes, good point, but I still want to go through this. I have no idea what is meant by dispersed network, so if anyone has a suggestion on what to say there instead or how to just explain what it is, please do so. Otherwise, my tendency would be to rephrase this, not to say dispersed, if no one can explain what it means.
Oh, this is in the abstract.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'll take those comments happily by mail just as well.
Yeah.
Next point, please. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yes. I updated. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Next point, please.
I updated it a bit, by the way. I haven't finished updating it yet. But
yeah.
Yes, I updated the big things that they are commenting.
I know that there's a lot of things going around here. Yeah, and on 6man, I don't have text here, but basically there was this question about have we talked about this with 6man? And as I understand, we haven't. And I'm not too familiar with the 6man procedure, so I can, of course, just go over there and send them a mail and ask what they think of it. But if anyone around feels more qualified, especially due to prior experience with 6man, I'd appreciate if someone could take this over here.
Maybe you, Carsten, Jim, maybe perhaps you have been working before with 6man? Just to say 2 names.
Never been close to them.
Okay. Carsten?
Okay.
Maybe? Sorry, yeah.
Well, I've been to 6man meetings, of course, but this is really about getting a code point from them. So it would be polite to present this at some point, and otherwise we just need to do the registration request.
Okay.
So
if you want Christian as chairs, we can also contact them, but I also have no experience with them.
So Carsten, by present you mean just in a regular IT kind of ask for a slot in their working group meetings?
Well, I'll just send a message to the mailing list. I think that's enough.
Okay. Then I can do that, and if anything comes back, that's good. We have something to say to the comment, and at least the experts will be alerted that a registration is coming from us. So if I may have some of the remaining -1.5 minutes, I'd like to use everyone's attention to just point out that, because I think it's kind of relevant to the group and I've been asked about it, I've started running a few services at coop.amsys.com. The link is in the minutes. And especially that is running a resource directory that I, for the foreseeable future, intend to keep operational. That's roughly working on the first come first serve basis that will that I'm writing the text for. And if someone comes in unauthenticated, then everyone could impersonate them, but that's kind of part of the model here. It's also running a cross proxy that's not crossing over to HTTP, but crossing between the CoAP plus TCP, a CoAP non-TCP, and especially now the CoAP plus WebSockets protocols. So if anyone wants to play around with them, feel free to use that. And also in the minutes, I've linked to now existing very, very minimal, I'm hoping, still working to get it flashed out, CoAP over WebSockets client and server implementation that can run a few demos so you can explore a bit more. Possibly this would also be a good thing to link from coop.me or any of the other things. Just basically me hoping to get a bit of feedback from you here, because this is because having publicly running RDs was something that was requested before.
Yeah, and actually we didn't find, remember when we were looking through Shodan and other tools, we didn't find so many. So I guess you will be, Carsten is managing coop.technology. I guess a link could be added to the tools, right?
Yes.
Maybe you already did, actually, I don't know.
I need to do that.
Okay.
Just
this is just the first public mention of this here, so.
And I think, I think this could be very interesting for the mailing list as well, if you want to.
Yep, I'll follow up there.
Yeah. I will also share it internally, and let's give it a try. Does it accept Lightweight M2M registrations? Perhaps, or some form of.
It won't accept Lightweight M2M registrations because it doesn't implement the /rd resource, and especially it has. It picks paths that might have to expose client misbehavior, but it's probably a good idea to add in /rd to add /rd as kind of a fallback resource. Yeah, good point. I'll add that, and then maybe it just works.
Thanks. I'll show it around. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Christian. By the way, this session was great. So we are running way over time, but just to be clear, we still have 7 more levels to go through the resource. 6 more levels to go through this.
I'd say everything below 4 is for people to basically skim over it if something meets your eye that you want to look into. Otherwise, I'll just do what I think is best and merge that up to the point that level 0 is literally typos and that stuff. So if I need, if I'm really blocked, if I get blocked on something, I'll just mail the list or ask people on the issue track. I think chairs, are you automatically mentioned on the issue tracker?
Yes, so I've seen the mention at least, but I just didn't have time to reply.
Okay, so basically I'll use escalation levels from posting into the issue tracker where all the authors are anyway, to mentioning chairs up to sending it to the mailing list.
To me, I prefer issue tracker, so I'm super happy with that, no problem.
Yes, but I can't CC the mailing list on the issue tracker.
Yeah. And then we need to CC every now and then, and that's it. I'm wondering another thing. Do you need, we have still the other interim. We don't have a list of topics. Another option was to use DIN-link, some time for DIN-link discussion, but we could continue in the next session, in the next interim, and just wrap up all the issues. Do you need it, or would you like it?
I don't think that all the issues need working group attention. So if you think it's something that should happen, I'm fine to share that. But
I would be happy if it is something. It doesn't have to be long. It could be just a wrap-up session, like to make sure that we have. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And then the rest of the session we can do DIN-link. Unless actually I take the time now. If somebody has a suggestion for the next interim, now is a good time to suggest. And if not, I think we can do RD and dim link.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Then
Do you think we may have a finalized updated version by the end of the month, early October, to consider for resubmission?
I think it should be. I mean, yeah, I think it should be possible.
Yeah, tentatively. I mean, let's check again at the next interim.
Yeah.
Great.
great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for staying a bit longer and enjoy the rest of your day in the US, and then have a good evening here in Europe. Peter Yi, I don't know where you're based actually, but have a great time too. And thank you, Christian, by the way, for this amazing work.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Definitely. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.